Hello, and welcome to another episode of Time of Day. I'm Lee Parnell, recording from somewhere in the south of England, and I'm joined as ever by my co-host, Mike, over in sunny LA. Is it actually
Good morning,
sunny?
Lee. It's incredibly sunny.
Oh,
Perfect weather all the time.
because not San Francisco.
Exactly.
Thanks for all the feedback on our last episode where we looked at the late war boxes. Today, we are going to be looking at the mid-war boxes. So, Mike, explain what we are going to be doing on this show.
All right. So let me go ahead and bring up our very official, very important tier list. So we have the standard 5 tiers. We have buy 2 at the top. Obviously, buy 2 of them. They're great. Solid starters. Good places to start. Not quite the immense money value, but easy to grow from there. We have flawed choices where Battlefront was so close to making this good. Existing collection boosters where if you are a veteran player, you will still find some value in this box. And then British starter boxes, which are notoriously terrible by Battlefront standards.
For certain conditions, as we'll explain later. Yes.
So this time around, we're going to be moving through all the individual boxes. I've changed the order a little bit. We're going to go through North Africa, then the Eastern Front.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to look at all the 2-player boxes again. North Africa, Eastern Front, just to keep a bit of order in this.
Sounds good. Yeah, so we're not going to cover the original tranche of starters like the King Force one from the pre-compilation era. Many because they're very hard to find now. All we've really got is this second tranche of much larger, much better starters, frankly. Yeah.
Yes. And normally, as I said in the first episode, for my articles, I ignore the 2-player starter boxes because people at the site do a wonderful job of writing those articles. But this time around, it felt more appropriate to include them all since we're looking at the entirety of all of these starter sets.
Mm-hmm.
So first up, we have the German Desert Africa Corps Panzer Company. Inside, we have 7 plastic Panzer IIIs, 4 plastic Panzer IVs, 2 plastic 88 AA guns, 4 plastic 105 howitzers, and 3 plastic 5cm guns.
Yeah, it's worth noting the Panzer IVs are the early Panzer IV kit, because there's 2 Panzer IV kits basically.
And this one doesn't build the late long barrels, if I'm not mistaken.
The Scherzen, correct? Yeah, it builds the first long barrel, which is slightly different anti-tank profile, anti-tank 10 rather than anti-tank 11. So yeah, obviously there's a formation that's going to be building up. 2 HQ Panzer IIIs, 2 of 5 Panzer IIIs, 2 of 4 Panzer IVs, either long barrel or short barrel. 88s you can field as a 1 or a 2. 105s and 5cm guns that all support. I actually didn't realise the first time the 5cm guns are formation support. I'm used to Pack 40s being formation support, but obviously it was sufficiently early that the 5cm gun is actually a support choice.
Right. Do these kits build the up armored Panzer IIIs? There's only the one Panzer III kit, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. The Panzer III kit builds all the variants. So it builds effectively the J, which is the short 5cm, the J late, which is the long 5cm, the L, which is the up armored but no Scherzen long 5cm, the M, which adds the Scherzen long, the N, which has the 7.5cm gun, and then also the Flampanzer. So it's a pretty versatile box.
That's good.
A sprue, sorry, not box, but yeah, so as this box, it's pretty versatile. So in terms of actually as a starter, it's not shabby. I mean, I run as my sort of DAC Panzer Horde. It's basically 2 Panzer IIIs, a 4 and a 3 of Panzer III, so a little bit short on Panzers. 3 or 4 Panzer IVs, usually the short barrel ones, can fire as artillery. A single 88, because 288 is a bit of a trap. Obviously, if you kill one, the other one runs away inevitably. But a single 88, that's it's 6 points. It's a relatively cheap, high-end anti-tank gun that can really scare crap out of any American or British tank that gets in its way. Even some of the Soviet ones, if you play Soviets.
Yeah, it is fortunate that we can bypass the fatal flaw of a two gun squad.
Mm-hmm. I think the problem is you don't get 2 slots. You can't have 2 single 88s, which would be a really good way of doing it. But
no, unfortunately, not Italians.
Not Italians, no. 4 105s. I think the best thing you can say about that is it gives you the crew for their 25-pounders you'll inevitably want to use them with. And they put the price up on their catch 25-pounder. It's still, frankly, better value. The best choice.
I don't know what happened to 105s this version. I really don't. I want to use them.
Mm-hmm.
I have half a dozen of them for my Americans, and I never run them because priests are just better.
Yep. The stats are fine. It's a nice high firepower weapon. It's just way too expensive for compared to every other option it's got.
Even dynamic points for 105 set you back 14 points.
Yeah.
That's a lot of points.
Yeah. And sure, the catch of 25-pounders is 16 points, but I'll still take the catch of 25-pounders any day of the week. That rate of fire 2 dual use gun is far more. You're paying a lot of points for a direct fire capability on the 105 you're never going to want to use.
I mean, the killer is looking just inside the DAC book. Is you can get 4 Lorraine Schleppers for 12 points.
Mm-hmm.
And they're better, they're harder to kill, and you can't pin them.
Yeah. It's shorter range. That's about the only thing you can hold against it compared to a 105. But on a 6x4 table, that's not going to come up that often. So it's not, yes, the front end of the box is really good. The free plastic 5 centimeters, they're okay. They just feel a bit redundant in the list or that other anti-tank you get.
Yeah, and then no infantry whatsoever. Is the DAC infantry still metal?
It's either metal. Yeah, I think it's metal. Didn't we do this? It might be soft plastic. Yeah, I think they had that first generation soft plastic, the infantry.
All right, so what are you feeling, Lee?
I'm torn on this one. I want to say it's a solid starter, but I just can't get past the fact that the 5 centimeter guns are very redundant. They're not bad, just redundant. And the 4 105s, it's just hard to recommend 105s. So I'm kind of going for flawed choice at this one.
I'm willing to go flawed choice, mostly because, like, yes, the Panzer III kit is incredibly versatile. You can build whatever you want out of it, but the Panzer IV kit isn't. Yeah. The Panzer IV kit builds exactly 2 types of Panzer IV. Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to go with sticking that boy in flawed choice.
And I'm going to be fair to it. It's exactly the right Panzer IV for doing mid-war desert. If you're going historical, that kind of thing. So it's not like Battlefront messed up there, but it's just not as versatile as, say, the one you see in Ghost Panzer, which you could use into late war. Yeah.
Right. So next up we have the Avanti box for the Italians. Shout out to Mike Everest.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Mike is more of an infantry player than he is armor, so it's but
true. But inside you get 10 plastic tanks that can either be built as the M1441s or the Semaventes, 4 plastic 47 millimeter guns, 4 plastic 100 millimeter howitzers, 4 plastic 88 guns. This is a really beefy and nasty looking bunch of Italians.
It is. It really is. I almost feel it's a bit too gun heavy, and you probably wanted a bunch more Italian tanks. You tend to burn through them pretty quickly. The little 47 gun, it's a bit of an odd choice. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic little ambush gun. It works really well paired up with the infantry. As a tank support gun, it's a little bit too short ranged, and it's no better than the main gun of the actual M14 in terms of tank. The 100 millimeters, again, the best you can say about them is their crew for capture 25-pounders.
These ones are 12 points.
They are cheaper,
you can, if you roll your 100 bayonet magic dice, well, they become veteran. So
Yeah,
not
again,
as terrible as the German 105s, but still
Mhm.
grossly overpointed.
and again, a little bit. If you build the tanks as some Ventes, again, they feel a little bit redundant. Because obviously, all the some Ventes can fire as artillery, so you're not generally.
True, but every time
mention-
I've seen a Semavente, they've just been fighting as main battle tanks.
But anything with decent anti-tank, yeah, it's 488s, nothing wrong with that. Although I
And
still
with the
argue,
Italians, you have the benefit of having 2 slots for them, so you could go
Mhm.
3 and 1.
Yep.
You could go 1 and 1 if you decided that actually you didn't need that many 88s and you were a madman.
Three and one is something I was looking at because I bought. We'll get onto a bit later, but when this all came out, I bought 2 of the Tobruk boxes to get all the Italians out of that. And that I thought was going to give me 488, so my plan was to go 3 and 1. Of course, what we found out was that first run of Tobruk boxes actually had twice as many 88s as they should have had. So now I have 8 88s.
Look at all these 88s.
I know, and the Italians never actually had 88s, which is the funny thing. There you go.
I think that's just a concession of Battlefront going, no one wants these metal resin Lancias.
Oh, everyone was those Lanciers are lovely. But yeah, the actual non-Lancia 90 was probably a dead end, and the 88's good. It's a concession. You use a plastic 88 rather than a metal 90. It's fine. But yeah, it's the problem I have with this box is I still feel it's better to buy 2 Tobruk boxes and buy this box, which we'll get onto a little bit later when we look at the Tobruk box.
Oh,
Because you don't really need the 47s. They are a very redundant gun, and the hundreds are nice, but I just struggle to really fit them into my list when I work at my Italians. That's me.
that's true, but like you get a decent amount of stuff in just the kit, and it builds both.
Mm-hmm. It's very flexible, yeah.
Like I find it because like 488s is really good.
Mm-hmm.
The 100 mils are fine for what they are. You build, you run the tank company, you build 2 as 1441s, you build the other 2 as Semavente batteries because obviously Semaventes. What's the max size on Semaventes? You could run 6. Ooh.
Is it 6? Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
is,
it's 675 Semaventes for 24 points.
It's a solid. Yeah, it's a solid selection.
So you can run just absolute zonks of these things. You can run more Semaventes than you can run 1441s because the 1441 caps out at 5.
Correct. You can still have 3 platoons or 3 batteries of Semaventes.
Yeah. I was originally leaning towards buy 2 until you started saying that stuff about Tobruk. And now I'm leaning towards just solid starter. Like if you want Italians, you just want to do Italians. You don't want any of that British stuff. It's kind of, the 47s have a thing, and if you decide you want to get a bunch of Basiglieri or Parashusti,
as you really should,
as you really should, then they've got homes there.
Yeah.
The 100 mils or whatever, but it's all the 88s you could possibly want.
Yeah. I'll go for a compromise position. It's not buy 2, but you pair this up with a Tobruk box.
Right. So I'm gonna slide it into solid starter.
Let's go with that. I'm happy with that.
All right. Moving on, we have the American M3 Lee Tank Company. So we have 5 plastic Lees, 3 Shermans, 4 Stuarts, 4 M10 tank destroyers, 3 Priests, and 2 T-28E1 self-propelled AA guns.
Yeah.
So
can't argue with any of that, really.
No, the only thing is like they put some expensive stuff in here because I think mid-war M10s are 7 points a guy.
Yeah, well, it's quite. I mean, it's anti-tank 12 and front armor 5.
Anti-tank 12, front armor 5.
Good mobility.
They are aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
They're trained, so the Seek, Strike, Destroy is still
a bit all a crapshoot. Yeah,
somewhat doable.
Mm-hmm.
the Shermans are, even with the downgrade, we're looking at 19 points in Shermans. That's a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nice thing is because you've got the Lees as your main backbone, and you can upgrade those to long Lees. You get the same sort of anti-tank output. So although you can sort of hang back with a Sherman, sort of get up close and mess things up at close range. I think my only argument with this box is I feel like because the Stuarts are reckless, you need all 5 Stuarts you can get rather than just 4. I feel like one more Stuart would have been quite nice to have in this box.
My actual complaint is the formation itself, because the M3 Lee Tank Company has one box where you could put these Stuarts or these Shermans. You can't put both in the formation.
Of course, yeah, that's right. That's one of the things I remember saying at the time. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because you end up with like a HQ of 2 Lees, a platoon of 3 Lees, a platoon of 3 Shermans, and that's your formation. Yeah,
because you can't also put the 4 Stuarts into the formation.
Right.
Because why would you put 4 reckless Stuarts in a formation when you could put 3 Shermans that are actually really good in mid-war?
Absolutely, yeah. But on the other hand, you can quickly rectify that by buying armor mortars and the cannon platoon, which are basically, you staple those to any formation you do of Americans because it's dirt cheap and high effectiveness.
I mean, I promise you, if you were thinking about starting Americans, buy 3 armored mortars. They're in every armored formation. They're 2 or 3 points. It doesn't matter. You want them. They are the secret sauce of every American armor list.
Yep.
You will use them
because they drop smoke, they drop HE, they are dirt cheap in the flat formation. It's just nothing you can say bad against them.
And then the other weird thing that they've done is they gave us the AAA half tracks, and they gave us 2 of them.
Yeah.
2 unarmored 4-up tank teams.
I mean, unarmored, I thought they were half tracks. Are they?
They're not. They're unarmored tank teams.
Oh, because that weird turret back prey, 4-6.
Yes. It's not like the late war ones where they become just normal half tracks.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's a 4+ save. I've never noticed that before with them. You're absolutely right. It's 2 or 4. I bet they come in a box of 4, don't they?
They probably come in a box of 2. I'm not sure.
No, they come in a box of 4. So you can't upgrade to say further. You're stuck with 2 of them.
Oh my! I assumed it was 4 because I assumed they were metal resins. Battlefront, please. Why do you do this? Please stop selling impossible boxes.
To be fair, I don't think these are ever going to be high on the use list because the points are better spent buying armor mortars instead. But yeah, I mean, you could put the armor mortars in the box. That'd be much nicer. But overall, I still think it's a solid. So at the very worst, it's a flawed choice. I think.
I think this is a flawed choice purely because it's an incredibly fragile formation, even if the tanks aren't.
Yeah.
You lose because any German player is just gonna say, I'm gonna ignore those Shermans and just start picking apart your Lees.
Mm-hmm.
The Stuarts not being able to be put into formation is a big knock there.
Yeah.
Or Battlefront's like, look at the flexibility. You could put good tanks or bad tanks in this formation. I'm like, that's not Battlefront, please.
A poor choice is not a choice.
Yes. The M10s are still very good. They're still pretty pricey because that's 28 points in M10s.
Yeah, but they are effective.
Yes, they will be, absolutely smashing, Panzer 3s to bits. But I still think this is a flawed choice, Lee.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I get what you're saying. You still got to buy extra bits. Go for floor choice, and
okay.
It's almost it's right on the line, but you to make this work really well, you have to buy extra bits. And to be fair, that's the thing with most starters. But I think whenever you have to go buy those extra things and leave things out the box because they're just not worth doing, then you're probably it isn't quite a solid starter. A solid starter means you could build this up and make little to no changes and use it straight to box, whereas you can't really do it with this box. So I think you're right. I think this is a flawed choice.
I mean, I think including a trio of priests over some 105 batteries is very good.
Yeah.
4 instead of 5, like the box is 5 stewards. You can run 5 stewards.
Yeah.
They give you 4. You get 2. You get half a box of the AAA, and it's honestly it's the formation itself that's really killing me on this one, Lee.
I see you coming from with it.
But moving on to the ironic namesake of one of these lists is the British Crusader Armoured Squadron, which includes 6 Crusaders, 3 Grants, 3 Valentines, 3 Churchills, 4 25-pounders for your German armies, and then a recce unit with 2 Daimlers and a Dingo.
Everyone loves a Dingo, baby.
Everyone loves a Dingo.
Okay, this is such a schizophrenic box because I keep looking at this. I hate it, and then when you read, but it's like remember the old magic pictures that were big craze in the 90s where you used to stare at them and then a dolphin would appear or something. The longer you stare at this, you realise what the box is showing. What the name is a mirage. The name is lowering you into a false place because it's not a Crusader Armoured Squadron. This is an awful Crusader Armoured Squadron. You end up with basically 2 platoons in the formation. Or 3, sorry, HQ in the HQ of Crusaders, a Crusader platoon and Grants, and that's your formation, and that's awful.
Yes.
But when you start looking at the Valentines and the Grants and the Crusaders, and when you look at the book, he goes, actually, it's a much better formation this box should have been. This isn't a Crusader Armoured Squadron. This is a Death or Glory box.
Yes. And I will say I did buy this box because when the big mid-war compilations were coming out and they were like North Africa, I'm like, finally. It's time to stop making my poor Americans pull double duty. It's finally time to start a mid-war army. And of course, I love the Crusader Lee. It's such a it's a very good looking tank. It's very fun. It's very fast. It dies in droves. The inner Soviet player in me was like, yes, this is a proper tank.
This is everything the T-34 horse should have been.
Yes, I should have been able to run. It's a real shame you can run so many more Crusaders than you can T-34s. Anyway, but yeah, the Grant kit does give you the ability to build both sets of turrets, so you can build it as a Lee or as a Grant, and it's as simple as popping the peg off and putting the other one on, so you can switch back and forth very easily. So if we just pretend that this doesn't say Crusader Armored Squadron, if we pretend it says Death or Glory parentheses Lee Squadron,
because
this becomes so much better.
Yeah, because if you look at a Death or Glory Squadron, your HQ can be either the Valentines, or you can have M3 Lees as your HQ, because basically one squadron found a bunch of lead tanks the Americans decay left behind whilst running away, and basically put them under new management. You then get as your first compulsory choice the 3 Valentines, armed with 2-pounders. Thankfully, late turrets are not overworked. Your next compulsory choice has to be a platoon of Crusader Frees. So that's 3 Crusader Frees. And then you can take in the next box as a non-compulsory choice another platoon of Crusader Frees. So that gives you, straight away, that's 4 platoons in the formation, which that's a pretty good number to have in a formation, especially
and compared to what Battlefront says, that if we scrambled our eyes and we saw this magic picture as a Crusader squad, not only would that be an HQ, some regular Crusaders, and then some Grants, you'd have to waste building some of these as
CS tanks.
CS tanks. And let me tell you, I understand that in real world applications, the CS tank was a good idea because it was to dig out infantry and lay smoke and all that stuff. But in the game of Flames of War, the CS tanks are useless. They're absolutely useless.
You're flattering British tank doctrine there. The CS tank was essential because we didn't give our tanks a proper HE rounds. Therefore, we had to have a dedicated CS tank to do the job. But yes, it was a. But
I mean, it wasn't like the Sherman 105s. That was just attached to the HQ. Are you telling me that the people who envisioned the tank, the creators of the tank, the British people, had no idea what they were doing with tanks?
The problem was we had no idea. The problem was we had too many ideas. No one could really work out what the best way of doing it was. And so, and eventually, we come up with the whole infantry tank, Crusader and cruiser tank doctrine. And when you get right to the end of the war, and that reaches its pinnacle with the Churchill 7 and the Comet, they don't look so bad. But unfortunately, when you start the war and you've got A9s, A10s, and A13s, and Matilda 1s, mind you, not even Matilda 2s, it's hard to look at that as a good starting point. But obviously that's the form out of formation. You got 425 pounders, always a solid choice. Is a reason all the Axis armies try and take capture 25 pounders, because it is the best gun in the war. But armored car, since they bumped universal carriers up in points with the dynamic points from 2 to 3, that makes them as the same price as the armored car squadron. That makes the armored car squadron a more of a winner over the universal carriers.
Yeah, because the 2-pounder is still like not a bad little gun.
No, I mean it's
mid-war.
it's an overworked turret. That's about which obviously is a limiting factor on its ability. But for an armored car, it's still a heavily armed armored car. The 3 Churchills, obviously they're all in Tunisia. Churchill's in Tunisia, Death and Glory were in Tunisia, so they might have been in the same area at some time from a historical perspective. But as a game perspective, that Churchill is a solid tank. The 6-pounder has HE on the Churchill tanks, which is a big help for it. It's got anti-tank 10, which again puts it on par with the Shermans. Firepower 4 is its a downside, really.
Right, but the soft stats are also confident, trained, careful, 3-up remount, 3-up counterattack,
and 2+ cross.
2+ cross, top 2 armor, 7 side, 8 front. Like, you can just drive a Churchill right on into infantry with not a care in the world.
Yeah,
your Valentines will have to think a little bit about it. Yes. But especially in mid-war, like, drive your Churchills and your Valentines directly into all that DAC infantry. They have nothing to stop you.
Oh, you bought a squeeze bore. That's unfortunate.
I understand that they designed the British and the DAC box to like play exclusively against each other, but Battlefront, the DAC infantry needed a redo. The DAC infantry needed a redo.
It's that whole thing of being very obsessed with the DAC at a very specific point in 1942 when their manpower was biting them, so they had to have these little like fire base platoons, basically, where few men, lots of guns, and it's great. But that DAC wasn't always like that. The DAC also had like proper motorized formations at various points. And then when you get to Tunisia and like 10th Panzer comes across and gets as a completely fresh Panzer division, then it's just kind of a. And sure, you can use Iron Cross to better simulate that, but it's just like the compilation book should be a one-stop shop, and they should have those kind of things in. But it's by the by. So yeah, I think once you use this book correctly, it's a solid starter. If you try and use it as Crusader Squadron, it's a flawed choice at best. But if you actually ignore that and do Death or Glory, then the glory is there to make it a solid starter.
Because the thing you said about they're like weapons platoons, I'm like, yeah, it's a real shame that they did this concept significantly better in the Italian book with the Bisiglieri Weapons Company.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, once you adjust your eyes and you see the truth behind this picture, that it's actually a Death or Glory squadron, this is solid.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not wasting any of the Crusaders. The Grant is a double thing, is a double kit, so you can easily swap. It's with a quick turret swap. You can run them as whatever. Churchills are absolute terrors in mid-war. The Valentine is a very competent tank in mid-war. You're a little hurting on the higher end AT because those are short. The Lees are only short barrel.
Yeah,
they did not magically steal long barrel 75s.
Mm-hmm.
The 2-pounders are 2-pounders, but you do get the AT-10 Churchills, and no one's going to hurt those things.
And the Crusaders are AT-10 as well, because they're Crusader 3s with 6-pounders.
I don't think so. I think those Crusaders are 2-pounders.
Nope. Death and Glory is Crusader Freeze.
Nope. Forces say they're. No, I'm looking at Valentine's threes.
The
Crusader
Valentines
threes.
are
They're 6-pounders. They're 18-9, and they are overworked.
All right, they don't have their the later ammo that the Crusaders do. That's the difference. So you are, if you go to a mid-war tourney that has no restriction on books and you have to start facing KV tanks, then it's more death than glory. I'm gonna be honest, but yes,
it's just death. It's just all death.
Yeah, against its historical opponents of Italians and Germans, it's a very competent force.
Right. So let's move on. Now we're going off to the Eastern Front boxes, which for two of these for at least one of these makes very little sense because it's just a pile of infantry. So here's the German Grenadier Company. Well, it makes sense because DAC infantry. But we get an HQ, 2 big platoons of Grenadiers. We get a sniper team. We get 4 heavy machine guns. We get 4 5-centimeter AT guns. We get 4 105 howitzers, and we get 2 88 AA guns.
I mean, yeah, can't argue any of that. That's a very good box.
I mean, you could buy this and you could run this in late war because it is just Grenadiers. It's just a big old pile of infantry.
Yeah. Whenever I had new starters at the club, and they didn't know they knew they wanted to do Germans, they didn't know what to do. I always said, do Eastern Front infantry because that thing will do you everything you could possibly want to do. It'll do like mid-war Italy. It'll do late war. It'll do mid-war Eastern Front because all the kit is the same. All the figures will work the same. And as a force, I mean, the only thing I could really say against it is we get back to that problem with 288s not being 188 is better than 288s.
Yes.
The 105s, yeah, they're not optimal, but it's a solid gun support infantry. It's got smoke, it's got HE. You can attack with it. You can break up Russians attacking you. It'd be nice to have some mortars in the box. That's about the only thing I can really say against it.
Yeah, because 2 platoons. The machine guns are a separate platoon. The 5-centimeters are a separate platoon, but all in formation. The only thing not in formation are the howitzers and the 88s, and that's actually really quite nice.
Can the Grenadiers upgrade to have machine guns in the platoon? I can't remember.
Let me check.
Just looking. Yeah.
Grenadier platoon.
Yeah. So the Grenadier.
You can add 2. You can definitely add 2.
Yeah, so you don't have to have a separate MG platoon. You could put 2 in each platoon. And I'll probably argue that might be a better way. Yes, it's less than the platoons in the formation, but those platoons are going to be really hard nuts to crack.
And actually, the thing I've noticed is that with mid-war, you can actually upgrade your Grenadier platoons to 9 stands instead of 7. So I actually think that this might be our first buy 2 of the video because with a second box of these, you can run 3 platoons of 9. You get the extra machine guns to break out into the platoons themselves if you want. You're up to 488s. Yep. The only kind of waste are the 5-centimeters and the 105s.
Well, you can run a platoon of 5 centimeters as in force from the force diagram. Because the anti-tank platoon can take 5-centimeter guns in their divisional support. The 105s are a waste, yes. I'll probably argue what you really want to be doing.
You could run, because I'm sorry, but yeah, no, you can run a formation of 5 centimeters in, and then you can run a second platoon as just from the general support tree, so you can still run all those 5 centimeters.
Yeah.
The 105s are just kind of a total waste and dead end, but you move up to 488s, and that's a real mean, nasty thing to help you against the hordes of KVs. You need all those 88s.
I mean, yeah. So you could buy 2 of these. I think you might want to start looking at maybe adding tanks or something to give you a more rounded force rather than more infantry. But it's certainly viable to buy 2 of these. Yeah.
It is incredibly viable to buy 2 of these. You are right. This is a game where tanks are very important. So maybe
arms is important. Yes.
maybe we do this the same thing as we said with Avante. It's like you could buy 2 or you could buy this, and any of the 2-player German boxes to give you some tanks and a little extra oomph.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and put that in solid starter then.
Yeah. Again, it's right on that line where it could be a buy 2, or it could be or I think it's just you could buy 2. I just think you probably want a bit more flexibility in your unit choices.
Right. So moving on to the tank version of this.
Yeah.
The German Mixed Panzer Company, 7 plastic Panzer 3s, 4 Panzer 4s, 2 Stugs, 2 Hornices, 4 251s, and a full platoon of Panzergrens.
Yeah. So
I know you have opinions on this box, Lee.
On the face of it, it looks really good until you sit down and start doing the maths. And we just discussed this literally at the start before we started. Goes, have you worked out the points in this box? Because when you start going through it, and bearing in mind the Panzer IVs in here are the late Panzer IV. So you got the shirts on, which sets you very much as being a late J and H. You've got the longer barrel as well, and the muzzle brake differences. The Stugs are very much for late pattern Stug G, not the early F or the D. So this is very much a late, like a 1943 box. And you start looking at the points. It's almost 150 points in this box. You cannot field this box a normal game. And it's very hard to trim that. Well, it's not hard. You just drop the Stugs and the Hornies,
Right.
and one of the Panzer 3s or 4s to keep the infantry in. But it's just like, and that'll get you to 100 points. And it's just like, what the Battlefront actually do their own maths on this box? That's dynamic points. No, it's even worse if you go to book, when everything's even more expensive.
It's worse if you go to the book.
But the thing that makes me laugh is you look at Fortress Europe, and this is actually a very, very good late war box. We really should have put this in the last article.
This is kind of what I was getting at. Least like we should put some of these mid-war boxes in, and I'm like, let's not complicate things.
Yeah. It's a crazy box. I mean,
because just the 3 platoons of tanks, right? The 2 HQ Panzer 3s, the 4 Panzer 4s, the 3 Panzer 3s with no upgrades.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry. You actually get 5. You get a grand total of 7 Panzer 3s. So I'm just gonna up this squad to 5 Panzer 3s real quick. Just those 3 units of tanks is 95 points.
Yeah, it is. Now,
then we add in an armored Panzergren platoon, a full size one for another 13, and suddenly we're at 108, which is way over points.
Yeah, so you got to drop one of the tanks to get yourself back in points, and then you got these Hornices and Stugs sitting there going, "What about us? What about us? We're here."
Yeah, the Hornices are 9 points a Hornice.
Yeah,
they are 80s. Aren't there 88s in this box? No, there's no 88s in this box.
No,
okay, I was about to say, I'm like, do we also is there more high-end AT that we can't use in this box? Even at dynamic points, I did the math earlier. This box is 148 points.
Yeah,
which is fantastic to get started with. But unfortunately, in the realm of starter boxes, where you give this out and you say, okay, here you go, but budding German player, here's your fancy box of toys. You cannot use all of these toys. It's way too expensive. That is a problem.
Yeah,
that is a real problem.
Everyone wants to use all the toys they buy, and if you can't, there's kind of a, well, why have I got these things? Now, on the bright side, our normal pet hate of 2 tank platoons in a box, these 2 you can correct, because you could buy a box of 5 Stugs, and that'll give you a HQ Stug and 2 3-gun batteries. That's good. That works. You could buy a box of 4 Hornices / Hummels, and you can buy that too. You got a 6-gun Hummel platoon, which is a fun time, especially as you start getting into all these cheap American infantry. So
right,
it's
or you could, 3 Hornices, 3 Hummels, because you can.
Well, that, yeah.
There's flexibility in that kit.
Yeah. So
this is flawed choice at best. I'm actually leaning towards existing collection booster because I can't I can't in good conscience tell a new player, here's your big box, don't use half of it.
No, whereas it works really well as an existing collection booster. But yeah, so it's if this was a late war box, this would probably been one of those rare German solid starters.
Oh man. It's
just such a weird box.
It's
like the British
too
box.
good. Battlefront put too much stuff in this box, which is shocking to say.
Mm-hmm. I think and it just shows the problem the Germans have. If you start trying to do 1943 German Panzers, they're just so expensive. I mean, I've always thought when you get to about mid 43, that's late war, because you start looking at all the kit that's appearing, both sides, both the Russians and the Germans. It's all late war kits, Su-85s, T-34, KV-85s, so they don't really appear as a mid-war monster. And on the German side, late fours, Panthers. It's all stuff that's really more of a late war flavour. It's that crossover point. It comes not in January 1944. It comes about September 1943.
Right, and it's just the only thing that would have made this more comical if they had put tigers in it. Like, it is just so expensive.
Like a platoon of them, like a platoon of 4 tigers.
No. This is mid-war. You can only ever run 2 tigers.
Yes, yeah.
There are 58 points for 2 tigers. Let's keep this somewhat in the realm of reasonability here. But they could have easily put in a tiger in this thing for God knows what reason.
And then
we'd be a 200-point box.
Always nice. Yeah. If you drop the Horneses and the Stugs and put a single tiger in, surely
you're still at the exact same points.
Yeah, you can still can't field it, but at least you're only dropping one model from the thing. Dear.
So I don't know. This is either flawed or existingly. What are you feeling?
I think existing collection booster, because you can't field all of it, and that's fundamentally not a starter box at that point, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, like the kits being able to build everything is very good. It's also very confusing to a new player, because I'm sure they'd be like, oh, I want the super tanks, right? I need all seeing, all dancing Panzer IIIs. They've got to be up armored with long guns, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean I can't up armor them and put long guns on them? I'm confused.
Yeah, you can't even. That's the problem. Though the Panzer III does build the earlier variants, you can't. If you do that, you then can't build a legal formation. You can't mix the early Panzer IIIs with the late Panzer IVs, and you haven't got enough just to make a single formation. Yeah, because you got to have 2 tanks in the HQ. You can't have a single Panzer III. Yeah, so you haven't got enough there to make even a brittle early Panzer III formation and put the Panzer IVs as formation support. So,
all right, so let's move on to the other side of the Eastern Front.
Yes,
we have the Enemy at the Gates box, which is a hero rifle battalion, 2 companies, 2 sniper teams, 4 45mm anti-tank guns, 4 122 howitzers, and everyone's favorite 2 Katyushas. Battlefront.
We really love that 2 Katyushas, don't they?
Why 2 Katyushas? Battlefront, please.
Do you reckon if we went to New Zealand and went to one of the tournaments there, the meta would just be all these weird, like two Katyushas? Maybe it's just like something they see in New Zealand. They think, all right, everyone does that. Let's put it in the box.
I don't.
The thing is, you ignore that 2 plastic Katyushas. It's actually a solid box.
It's a fantastic box. I've written an article on this box. I think this box is fantastic. There's a weird command card you can abuse called the Guards Airborne, and I know some people are like, oh, that's you can't apply to the whole thing. It says build unit hero rifle battalion, so it applies to the whole battalion. You can make the entire battalion fearless for a single point. It's insane.
And like I say, all of that also works for late war. There's nothing there that's, because that's their the hard plastic rifles, so they're more optimized for being like later style Russians anyway. 122s work. The 45 builds both the short barrel and the long barrel. The long barrel is far more relevant for late wars than ambush gun. It's solid box. Just throw away the Katyushas.
Just pretend it does not come with Katyushas.
Or use those Katyushas as objective markers or something, just not as Katyushas.
Yeah, because they are the the rifle companies are just.
Hey, how big are those rifle companies? Are they actually proper size companies? So I'm just trying to look it up now.
So they are the 10-man
hero ones,
hero rifles.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the big ones. They come with Maxim machine guns.
Yep.
They come with they don't come with PTRD stands or.
They do get their flamethrowers. I can see the flamethrower in the picture.
I'm looking at the picture of the back of the box, and it's there's some snipers, there's some commissars, which you might be confusing.
I'll try and look at the sprue. I've got the sprue around somewhere. Give me 1 second. Stand by, caller. Man, look things up.
The 45s are very nice. They are in formation, as either the short or the long barrel. They are pretty darn cheap. Oh, Lee, I bought this box. I promise you there are no flamethrowers in it.
No, you're right. The sprue doesn't have a flamethrower. It must be a thing. If you look at the picture in the back of the Eastern Front book, you can just see 2 flamethrowers on the thing, but maybe it's just something they had in the picture. Even with the flamethrowers, it's still solid.
Yeah, because you can run the machine guns as a separate company.
Yep.
You can add them into the infantry companies. The 45s are in formation. The sniper is in formation. Obviously, the 122s are perfectly good artillery as far as the Soviets are concerned. They are 105s, but they are cheap. So, and they're direct fire 9. So it's pretty darn good.
I think the only way I make that better is by putting 4 plastic 76s, which you can then have as either artillery or anti-tank.
Oh yeah, the dual purpose of the Zis guns. But actually, the thing that would be better is if you put mortars in this. You got rid of the Katyushas.
Yeah.
You put in some
even
either
4 mortars,
82 mils or some 120 mil mortars. That would make this box really spicy. But I think this is an incredibly solid starter.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's buy 2. Buying 2 does fix the Katyusha problem, but then it gives you far too many 120. Well, actually, no. You could run 2 batteries of 122s.
I'm going to draw an objection that more Katyushas is fixing the Katyusha problem. It's just doubling your Katyusha problem. They have even more Katyushas you don't want to use. It's just a better battery.
You've got me there. You can run 2 units of 45 AT guns in a hero rifle battalion.
Or you buy 2 and you use these as for non-hero Soviets.
Because that is also a real thing. So you can really get hoardy with it. Actually, what's the? Let me just see what the sizes on regular rifle companies are.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 19. You could totally.
It's totally
buy 2 of these and run them as. I'm going to put this in buy 2. Because more infantry is more good.
Yeah.
And you could theoretically run everything from. You could theoretically not waste a single model in these boxes if you buy 2.
Yeah, you could.
It does involve running Katyushas and 2 batteries of 122s, but the 122s are pretty good for what they are.
Yeah.
They are unfortunately green, but that does make them cheap enough to run multiple of.
And in late war, they can use that the smoke car as well. 122, so one of the units lets you do the smoke bombardment, which is a very handy car for late war.
Yes, and you know what? Actually, mid-war Katyushas are trained. They're a higher quality. I can't keep this bit going. Do not run Katyushas, please. Do not run Katyushas.
But you could run the Katyushas
again. In the real world, the concept of just rolling up a Ford pickup truck with a bunch of rockets on the back and saying "Eat this, fascist scum" really appeals to me. To my very soul, I love the idea of rockets go whoosh. But in the game, they're just not good.
No, I think
They're the best version of these things,
Mhm.
and they're bad.
I think it's just that problem. You probably get like 2 turns of bombardment before you start tripping over yourself. So it's just like your points just don't quite spread.
Right, because you're playing Soviet horde infantry. You want to be moving up to fight people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to stand there and shoot. That's not what a Soviet rifle battalion does. Now, if you were running like a motor rifle battalion, I could see an argument of playing like a defensive list,
Yeah.
even though you're Soviets. That's madness. But for like regular rifle battalions, like you want to assault people.
Yeah.
I'm
Flamethrower.
still I'm gonna stubbornly say buy 2.
I'm not going to disagree with it because I think there's definitely, if you wanted to go for running the horde, then buying 2 would definitely get you that horde. So I think it's definitely the most viable one for buying 2. Okay.
All right. So moving on to the Soviet tank box, we have a Soviet T-34 battalion with 6 T-34s,
Yep.
4 KV-1s, 4 T-70s,
Mm-hmm.
2 Su-85s, 3 BA-64 scout cars, and 4 plastic 76 mil guns. Now, that's a really solid. Well, I don't know about really solid. The formation has, because your formation is just the T-34s and the T-70s.
Yeah, and it's not particularly big, So you got one HQ T-34. That's good. So you got 5 T-34s in one platoon. You got the 4
T-70s in the other,
and that's it.
That's it.
That's not gonna last long.
No. This is a box that needs a lot of help. The Su-85s are good for what they do. They're careful. They're veteran. They've got AT-12 guns. They're 5-up. They're fearless
and
for some reason.
They're so expensive because of that. You have to use them in pairs. You just can't afford to get a platoon of 3 a lot of the time.
Right. The KV ones, build the KV1 and the KV1S if you want a comically slightly faster KV tank with less armor.
Yeah, I think you always build just the standard KV1. It's definitely the correct choice a lot of the time.
I'm in agreement. Who cares if you're hit on 3s when your front armor is 9 and your side armor is 8?
Absolutely.
Yes, the gun is overworked. You're not shooting. You're trying to drive over infantry with this thing.
Mm-hmm. So all the bits of it, Spox, are pretty good. It's just that the formation it goes around just doesn't quite stand up.
And you know what? If you paired this with the rifle battalion box and just ran all these as support options, you could do pretty good, because like having a big brick of KVs as a distraction carnifex, if you will, does a great amount of work. Having a couple Su-85s to really punch at German armor is quite good. Even having some T-70s to just roll around and be boxes of machine guns to fight infantry, very good. Unfortunately, we fall into my great sorrow of mid-war T-34s being not good.
But a tricky one, because even in mass, they just don't seem to reward that mass. That you have to obviously the whole overwork thing. Once you learn how to use them, like you dash one term and open up in the second term what's left from enemy fire.
Now there is another way to do this box, which is the mixed tank battalion.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking up earlier. I was just trying to see if that would work.
I mean, you the KVs, the T-60s, they're technically T-60s. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same plastic kit. The T-34s have to be earlies. It's not?
No, the T-60 is a very different tank to the T-70.
That can't be right.
So the KV-1 and the T-34 absolutely are. It's basically they're your compulsory choices. The T-60, T-70 thing doesn't really matter as much. Yeah, you look at T-70 compared to a T-60, they are quite. So T-60 is a resin kit, to remember, right?
Right. But what I'm saying is, if you put those T-70s down and said these are my T-60s, I don't think anyone would bat an eye at you.
Probably not. No, I mean obviously it's a bigger gun on the T70. It's a 47 versus
A
what's
20.
it, 20 mil on
Yeah.
the T60. But yeah, you're right. Most people probably would roll with that. And that so yeah, but even if it didn't, even ignore that, 6 T34s and 4 KVs. That's not a bad mixed battalion. Obviously, you are reckless, but
Right, but that's like 53 points
yeah,
in just T34s and KVs. Oh, you know what? You can't, because you only get 4 T70s, and the minimum number of T60s in the mixed battalion is 5.
Right. So you are just looking at.
We were so close to finding a way. Chat.
Okay, but
we
you
were
could
so close.
Well, the thing is, it still works as a formation because you still got the
It still
two
works as a
compulsory choice.
formation.
And the T70s could be a formation support selection that goes in there. Because they are a black box in one of the lists, so therefore you could have them as formation support going alongside them.
You know what, Lee? We're literally 1 T34 short of making this a hero battalion and fixing a lot of these problems.
That's one of my issues with it. Like say, if you just had that one extra T34, so you could field this as
as a hero,
2 platoons of
battalion.
3 and a HQ.
And then the T70s are also that, and it becomes a much better formation because A, the tanks are just better stat wise, and B, you can have 3 things in formation.
Makes it a flawed choice to my mind. It's got to be a flawed choice. Because you could buy there's enough place on eBay selling single sprues to get 34 and fix this box, but you have to buy the extra bit to get across the finishing line.
Right, or if you hate eBay and love your local store, the T34 76 is absolutely a world of tanks.
Yep.
A single blister pre-assembled, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah.
The scout cars are good. Yeah, I mean, like I was tempted to be like existing collection booster, but I think it's synergy with like the enemy at the gates box, and any of the other stuff kind of save it from that.
Yeah, and the fact you can salvage this with one blister, with like one tank, and it salvages the box it's so close, Battlefront, so close. We put that in, it would have been the solid.
Close. Okay.
Okay, so that's all the core boxes. We're on to the 2-player stuff.
We're on to the 2 players. So we have first up we have the Kasserine box with 4 M3 Lees, 3 Shermans, 5 Stuarts, 6 Panzer 3s, 3 Panzer 4s, and then 3 5-centimeter guns. I mean, this is pretty solid. Because here's an M3 Lee company that is a bit tougher, oddly enough, because you are one. Hold on a second. 4
Lees. One less Lee because
one less Lee.
Yeah, so it's actually not as tough as your one because you only got a single HQ tank. But you're spending a lot less money to get this.
You are spending a lot less money.
And you could buy 2 of these, and obviously fill out.
I was about to say, but I'm like, look, Lee, they gave you 5 Stuarts this time. I'm like, no, wait, the formation only lets you run the Shermans or the Stuarts in this formation.
Back to the same problem we had earlier, yes.
Battlefront. We were. I understand that, like,
but
the American army in the desert was a nightmare and bad, and didn't know what they were doing. But you gave the Italians plastic 88s. You jimmied up the T14 out of thin air. Just fix the box on the Lee company that turns that gray box into a Lee/Stewart box, please.
Okay, but what I think is it's a solid start because you could take that, you add a box of M3 Lees just to basically round out HQ to 2 tanks, round out that first platoon to 5 M3 Lees, and then have a second platoon of 3 M3 Lees, along with the Sherman platoon in the compulsory box. That's a solid formation. Then you have the Stuarts. Your Stuarts basically act as your infantry as a formation, as formation support, and then you go back and buy the mortars and the cannon platoon to really round out that formation. And like I say, you're starting from a much lower price threshold here. It's a two-player set. And you're splitting this box with a friend basically. He's getting the German bits, you're getting the American bits. I think it's, if you look at the two-player starters.
You know what you could actually do is you could run two formations, because with 10 M3 Stuarts, you could run, an HQ and 2 4-tank Stuarts.
Slap on that card that makes them aggressive rather than reckless.
Instead of reckless, yes.
Yeah.
And then you have the best thing of a Stuart, which is a rolling box of machine guns.
Mm-hmm.
It's 5 dice of machine guns, people. The M3 Stuart is an infantry murderer.
Yeah.
And then on the German side, 6 Panzer 3s, 3 Panzer 4s.
Yeah. So straight out the box, it's a pretty solid formation, because you've got HQ of two Panzer 3s, a platoon of 4 Panzer 3s, a platoon of 3 Panzer 4s. You can use that as a starting point, add some Panzer 2s in there, buy some more tanks. It's not a bad starting point for a formation. The 5 centimeter,
the 5 centimeters, that was about to bring that up. It's weird.
It also stops you doubling this up, because all you get end up with is basically you max out the 5 centimeters with 4 guns, or you could go for, like say, we know you can. This is already your force support, so you can't go add another platoon of 5 centimeters in. So it does prevent you from buying 2 boxes for the German player without having some wastage.
Right, but I think this is just solid.
I think it's solid. I think it's, if you take the point that, unlike for big boxes, because it's always going to be something you build on, you have to buy bits to build into it, which I think is not because considering a lower price point, it's not a bad place to start. I think it's a solid starting point for both forces, that box.
Yeah, and you could easily couple it with their individual boxes, and
or couple it with the British with the Tobruk box, and have Italian allies supporting the Germans, and have then you can take the Shermans and the Lees and build them as the American equivalents to the Americans, and have a supporting platoon of Crusaders.
Yes.
Yeah.
So moving on to the Tobruk box.
Yes.
So we get 6 Crusaders,
Mm-hmm.
3 Grants, 3 Shermans, 9 1441/Hemaventes, and 2 88s.
Yeah.
Now the Italian side on this is top tier.
It's fantastic,
because you can run those 88s individually and be an absolute terror.
Yeah, but also, like I say, when this came out, the price point was such that it was basically a case of, for a few pounds more than buying a box of 5 M14s, I get another 4 M14s, 88s, and a British Army. So
yes,
it rendered the box of 5 M14s completely redundant, because it's always better to buy a Tobruk box. It's a bit like how Hit the Beach made buying the Sherman box redundant, because it's always better to buy another Hit the Beach. But obviously, a price point has gone a bit since then. It's not quite the lost leader it was when it first came out, but it's still a
right. But with
solid,
2 of these, an Italian player can basically run, I think, like 1 tank shy of a fully maxed out tank company.
Yeah, and the British benefit from it being a 2 boxer as well, because then you get loads of Crusaders, and you can run a Grant formation or a Sherman formation, have some support units as well. You can't put the Sherman in as a support choice for Crusaders or Grants, but you can put Crusaders or Grants in support as a compulsory choice in a Sherman formation. It's a bit weird how, for some reason, they never fixed the Sherman formation, because when this all came out for mid-war, the Sherman didn't appear until the second book, Armoured Fist. And they never retro fixed for Crusader and Grant formations to add the Sherman back in. It's a bit annoying. But it's still, I bought two Tobruk boxes, so I could do a German force and a British force. So
yeah, but the thing about the Sherman squad is you can actually with 6 Shermans, you can stretch that out quite a bit, actually, because you can make the squads 2 Shermans and a Grant.
Yep.
Get yourself 3 Sherman troops and the HQ with those 6 tanks.
Still
have 3 left over to just run a 3 tank Grant troop.
In support of the Crusaders, absolutely. Yes, it all works. It's quite a lot of points. You're playing big games.
You can't run. I guess you could run the Death or Glory Crusaders, because they're a different Crusader because the Crusader 2 Armored and the Crusader 2 or 3 Armored troops are in the Sherman formation.
Mhm.
But if you run Death or Glory Crusaders, then you can run those in the same army.
Yeah.
Because they're different names.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Tobruk is like a clear winner on both sides. I mean, even if you are the Italians and you leave like, you know, some of the 88s at home, but like you could run a full thing of 488s, you could run 2 1s, you could run a pair or a 3 and a 1. Like Tobruk is an absolute winner, and I say buy 2 if you're interested in starting either one of these armies for mid-war.
It's definitely a buy 2. Even if it's 2 of you and one guy's taking, you know, the Italians and somebody else is taking the Brits, it's still buy 2.
Yeah.
Every day of the week.
So let's take a look at the Kursk box. For the Germans, we have 2 Panzer IVs, lates, 2 Panzer III lates, 2 Panthers, a Tiger. For the Soviets, we have 7 T-34s, 3 Valentines, and 4 Su-85 tank killers.
This is such a game of 2 halves because this is a very good Soviet force. The hero, we fixed that hero problem. We now have that hero formation.
Yes.
HQ, two T-34 platoons, a Valentine platoon. You know, put in the SMG companies and mortars, well-run formation right there. And then you've got the 4 Su-85s in support, which is probably about 2 Su-85s too many, but for late war it works quite nicely.
Right.
But the Panzers is just like it's just like 2s. Everything's in 2s. What? Just choose one of the tanks and just put.
Hold on, I need to. This can't possibly be a legal formation, can it? Where's Iron Cross here?
See,
I'm looking this up on Forces chat.
It must be a mixed Panzer or something with Panthers, but I suspect it's not a. I suspect it's not a legal formation. I can't believe it would be 2 Panthers is an actual platoon.
Hold on a second. So if we okay, this is a legal thing because if you do 1 HQ Panzer III,
yep,
and then you run a mixed Panzer III for upgrading, doing
HQ,
a Panzer III and 2 Panzer IVs for the mixed platoon.
So your HQ has to be 2 tanks, but what it could be...
No, your HQ is 1 tank. You can run a single Panzer III as your HQ.
Well, the mixed
or
Panzer
a Panzer IV in the mixed Panzer company. This is what it says on Forces.
It says, okay. In the book, it says it's 2. Oh, I 1 or 1. They're both. Oh, yeah, I see it. You're absolutely right. Apologies. Yeah.
So you can pick a Panzer III or a Panzer IV as your HQ.
Yeah.
Run the other 3 as a mixed.
Yep.
The Panthers are your other compulsory.
Yeah.
And then you can put that 1 Tiger in formation. Hold on a second, I'm doing the math. It's 97 points.
So it is a formation. It's not as brittle as it first looked for the 2 Panthers.
It's all in formation, which is astonishing. However, you are just relying on literally the Panthers and the Tiger not dying.
Yeah.
And with some Su-85s and some T-34s, like they're fast enough that they're side shots. You can pull this off. But this is like 100 points in tanks, and I don't. Battlefront, I was joking earlier when I said, what if they just put a single Tiger tank in this box and that would fix it instead of these Hornetius and Stugs? I was joking, Battlefront. Please.
It kind of works, but yeah, it's now you've pointed out to me how the HQ and the platoon works. It makes more sense. I was trying to work out where to have all these 2 tank platoons, but it's a HQ and a platoon of 3 tanks, just mixed types.
Yes, but it's still just because again, the Soviet half, very good, very solid. Totally a good starting point. Hold on a second here. I just need to see how many points this is, because like seeing this as 97 points of.
I can see that being about 100 points of Soviet tanks, just in my head, just working it out. Because 4 Su-85s is 48 points.
Oh yeah, no, those Su-85s, they definitely do a lot of heavy lifting here.
And T-34 24, so that's 48. 8 points of HQ. Valentines add on another 10 points. So it's probably over 100 points, actually. I think you do the maths and the formation and the force thing.
It is 90 points on the nose.
Oh, okay.
So
well, you got points to put SMG company in to make that formation even better. It's
and then you can buy Molotov so you can go fight the Tiger tanks with your SMG infantry. Okay, so the points aren't nearly as lopsided as I was afraid of, but
no,
man, oof.
It's definitely better for one player than the other if you're splitting this two. Also, you don't really want to double it up either. If you're a Soviet player, it doesn't really benefit you much. But you probably make it because the Su-85s are a bit. I know you can run a formation, a Su-85 formation with the command cards, but the points add up really quickly.
The points are. It's 36 points for 4 of them. Do you want 4 Su-85s or do you want 6 Hero T-34s? That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And this is me like picking the expensive option on the Valentines. I could have shaved off 2 points by making them all 2-pounders instead of upping one to a 6-pounder. But
yeah,
man, it's definitely not by 2. It's definitely not solid.
It's solid for the Soviet player, and
it's solid for the Soviet player, but unfortunately for the German player, this thing for a German player, this is a British starter box.
Yeah. I think we've got to split the difference and make it a floor choice or an existing collection booster. Kind of works as existing collection booster for an established German player.
I feel like we should be. I'm feeling generous. I'm going to say flawed choice because the Soviet half is rock solid.
Chef's kiss, yeah.
Chef's kiss. Soviets, very good. The German. I get it. Battlefront. It's Kursk. It's the big tank battle. So you wanted to just fill this thing full of tanks.
Heavy tanks.
You should have filled this thing full of tanks that could like fight each other better. Take the Tiger out and put a few more Panzer IIIs in.
Mm-hmm. Or an extra Panther. Extra Panther and extra Panzer III or something like that, yeah.
I think you can only run 2 Panthers in mid-war.
Can you not get 3 of them in there?
Hold on. Look, I'm double checking right now. You can get up to 5 Panthers. Never mind.
Oh, wow.
I'm wrong. Maybe it was in North Africa.
I'm not suggesting you put 5 Panthers in, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely not. They're 15 points a Panther. Yeah, but like you so close Battlefront. Like one more Panzer III and a Panther instead of that Tiger, and we would have had a really good box here. But man, the points on both sides is actually like comical. But the Soviets get away with it because they can go, okay, we're not going to run the hero versions anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So now 7 T-34s is a single choice, and it's a third of what the points used to be.
I tell you what, it kind of works as a complement to those infantry boxes, the German infantry box and the Soviet infantry box. You look at that as it's giving the Soviet player a 7 T-34 platoon or Su-85s or 3 Valentine tanks, and the German player basically gets a Tiger and a mixed tank platoon of 2 Panzer IVs, 2 Panzer IIIs.
Yeah, so I think we're okay at flawed choice then, because they do complement some of these other boxes quite well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to Stalingrad. For the record, in my notes it says content Stalingrad, the good one.
Good one.
So
we'll explain why in a minute. Yeah.
We'll explain in a minute.
So this is basically infantry and guns and the future.
Yes. So for the German side, we have an HQ, 2 full platoons, 2 5 centimeters, and 3 Nebelwerfers. For the Soviets, we have an HQ, 2 squads of the heroes, 4 76 guns, and 3 T-70s.
The only thing I'd say against the German one is 3 5 centimeters would be better. Nebs are fine. I mean, unlike Katyushas, they at least have the benefit of being cheap. You don't feel like you're wasting your points too much with Nebs.
They do have smoke as well.
Mm-hmm.
The smoke is a big deal to me.
Does it never worth a kit build? Something else. Is that not the same kit as a 5cm gun? Actually, if I'm thinking, is it not the same sprue?
I am not sure.
I'll have to look up later. I'm pretty sure it's the same sprue. It might give you the option then of doing a few different things with it.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Maybe these are these motor rifle infantry? I'm trying to figure out like what Battlefront says that you should run the Stalingrad infantry as.
It kind of feels like a motor infantry. The two of the Maxims and the rifles in there. Motor rifles would make a lot of sense. You got the
Yeah, let me just take a quick look at the hero motor rifle. They have to be heroes of something because it says 14 stands of infantry and small heroes are 7 stands. Because you can always add the HMGs to rifle or motor rifle.
Right. Okay. Let's try and find that. Where it is. Yeah, so it's like 2 big blobs of infantry, which is always nice.
Yeah, you get an HQ, you get 2 big blobs of infantry.
So the Neb doesn't build a 5cm. The Neb just builds a Neb, I think. Okay, well, two Nebs isn't bad. It's just vulnerable because obviously you lose a 5cm. The other one's going to run.
Right.
And it's quite hard to expand from as well.
But looking at the Soviet side of things, you run a hero motor rifle battalion.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an HQ, you've got 2 squads. The T-70s go in formation. The 76s go in formation.
Yep.
As AT guns. You do have the ability to be like, well, actually, I'll just make them artillery guns instead, and that's also still very viable.
Yeah.
It comes with some. It only comes with 2 HMGs, so can you run that as? No, you need a minimum of 3 HMGs to run them as their own separate company. So you add those 2 into the motor rifle companies.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid for Soviets. On the German side,
it's not bad on the German side.
I don't know what are we looking at here.
So I think each with the Maxims, each platoon comes with 2 Maxims. So you get 4 Maxims in that box.
You get 4 Maxims in the box. I'm sorry, what?
So because
I thought it was
basically
only
each rifle sprue has 1 Maxim on it, and so you must get 4 sprues to make up those 2 platoons. Therefore, you must have 4 Maxims.
Okay, so theoretically, you could split the Maxims off into another separate company.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is pretty nasty.
Mm-hmm. So the German side's fine. I think it's something to build on. It's not, whereas the Soviet one's a lot more self-contained and ready to go.
Yeah, the Nebs are definitely formation support.
Yep.
You get two groups of Panzer Grens.
Mm-hmm.
You get a couple. The 5 centimeters can be run as just 2 ofs, obviously.
Yeah.
Most Battlefront wouldn't have stuck them in. Okay.
Oh, so you think about this. What if you double it up and add another, buy another Stalingrad box onto this? See, when you can start running that big Soviet horde again.
Mm-hmm.
The T-70s
you wind up with too many infantry for the Germans, though.
You do want it to mention even. Well, you say that with the Grenadiers, you can max out the size of them to like.
If you run them as Grenadiers, right? I was looking at Panzer Grens.
If you run them as Grenadiers, you get their a 6-gun Neb battery, which is excessive, but in a good way.
Comically excessive, but yes.
You get a platoon of 4 5cm guns. You get 2 maxed out Grenadier platoons and a 3rd Grenadier platoon at lower strength.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Soviet just gets like a big horde, like 2 big companies of rifle guys. You could have 76s in formation and then a battery of 76s for artillery. T-70s you might max out because what's the maximum size of T? You can get 10 T-70s in there. So 6 be fine. Yeah, I think it works.
No, you can only run 3 if I was looking at hero motor rifle. If you buy 2, you can start upgrading into just regular motor rifle.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So if you
Yeah.
want to run Soviets properly and not have always hero malarkey.
Yes, if you want to run Soviets at the same cost that you run any other army.
You got to go hero at that point. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a solid starter. I think
I think that this is in fact solid. There it is just a little bit awkward. They don't quite double up quite so nicely as Tobruk does.
No. What you could do is pair that up with a Kursk box.
Yes.
Give the armor support then for those infantry. So
actually, like pairing up Kursk and Stalingrad is actually like a really good 1-2 combo.
Mm-hmm.
The only downside being, you would obviously leave some stuff at home.
But it's always nice to have those.
The Kursk box is 100 points all on its own.
Yeah.
But you could add the infantry in to give you something to do, or some artillery to make it a little more interesting, or
Mm-hmm.
you could pick a couple tank platoons to really spice up the Stalingrad box.
Yep, I think so.
So let's move on to Stalingrad. In my notes, the bad one.
Yeah, these are those weird little like Fury for late war, the little weird starters where you get a whole collection of different tanks and play some sort of weird mini version of tanks, but with Flames of War rules. It's kind of I not quite worked out what this is being pitched at or how, but
I think it was probably we need a starter at every level. This is like what I think they would want at a Barnes and Nobles or something, where they're just like, here, get a taste. Come. World of Tanks has done a much better job of this, of getting people to play with Battlefront miniatures and going, what if I had more of these? But let's say what's actually in the box. So in the bad Stalingrad, we have a single KV, a single T-34, a single Valentine, a single Panzer III, and a single Panzer IV.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because I think that the German players are at a massive disadvantage with only 2 tanks. With Fury, I was like, it could go one way or the other depending on how unlucky you rolled with the Tiger. But with a KV tank in there, the Panzer 3 and 4 look a little soft on the gunnery there.
And it's early Panzer 4 as well, so it's not. You see, he hasn't even got the anti-tank 11 gun. It's
right. Plus a Valentine, which is still more than enough to be annoying to the Panzer 3. Yeah. And the T-34, like.
So that gives you that one T-34 you need to fix the red banner box.
Oh my god!
And then, actually, that would work. So you could put the KV with the 4 KVs you got and get a 5 KV platoon.
Yeah, yes, and then a fourth Valentine.
Was the Valentines in that red banner box? Yeah, that works as well.
Yeah, there's definitely Valentines in that red banner box.
Right, so Stalingrad. You buy this with the red banner box. That's what you do. And give the German players some more Panzers from to play with as well. Yeah. Oh dear.
Oh my god.
I think existing
Battlefront still sells this box. This box is still on the web store.
Yeah, I thought
$35.
Yeah.
For the record, as of recording, Kursk, Stalingrad, Tobruk, Kasserine, they're all $65.
Mm-hmm.
So for $30 more, you get an immense amount more. You get an absolute king's ransom more. If you were like, well, I want to play like Eastern Front tanks, just buy the Kursk box, please.
Yeah. I always feel like this. So this is definitely a British starter box, unless you got Red Banner, in which case it's an essential buy. You should buy this at the same time. Fix all your problems. The Red Banner box,
or a $10 World of Tank blister. Yep, that goes in the British starter box.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So moving on to our final one. Obviously, Battlefront couldn't have just, made this awful Stalingrad box and said, right, there's that one for mid-war. Of course, now mid-war is 2 distinct theaters, so obviously they made a box called El Alamein with a Grant, 2 Crusaders, a Panzer III, and a Panzer IV.
That's the fact that goes. No, they didn't feel like a Grant and the Crusader was a decent matchup versus a Panzer III and a Panzer IV. So put an extra Crusader in just to.
Not an extra Grant, an extra Crusader.
Yeah.
And I'm just. It's so. See, this time it's a little more even because the British outnumber the Germans, but the German tanks are clearly better.
Oh, I know. Like the Grant can hold its own versus any one of those other tanks, but yes, it's a.
But the Crusaders are front armor 3 or 4 and will die immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I play mid-war, I run a fully maxed out Crusader company because A, they're dirt cheap, and B, they die like dogs.
Hiding behind the burning wrecks is a very British tactic in mid-war, and you send out your smoke screen wave, and then the rest of the army goes up behind the smoke screen wave, and
and then the tug rolls up
until the German player gets counter-attacked and starts shooting the second wave before they start shooting the first wave. So they don't get the benefit of the smoke screen. Once they start learning that trick, the whole tactic falls apart really quickly. It's
and you used to rule the world.
Right. It amazes me too. I'll be honest. In fact, naval power was a big deciding thing before air power. So,
right there's only one place Alamein goes. It joins its friend Stalingrad in the British starter box, thus fulfilling the mandatory quota of there needs to be some kind of British in the British starter box column.
It does, yeah. So we almost ruined this by putting the Tobruk as a solid starter and Armoured Fist as a solid starter. So,
well, I mean, we had to squint our eyes really hard to make Armoured Fist a solid starter. It was almost a flawed choice.
But once you see beyond the cover,
once you open your third eye, man, and you open your mind to the possibilities of the universe,
yeah.
That Battlefront mislabeled this box badly and actually give you a really good Death or Glory squadron instead of a pretty mediocre Crusader squadron. I know I bag on the British armies a lot, but I think there's a lot of cool stuff in those kits, and Battlefront never puts any of them in the starter boxes.
Or like the late war Bulge British one, it puts all the cool stuff in, but it puts too much in and not enough at the same time.
It doesn't make sense.
So it doesn't make
Everything
any sense.
overlaps. Here are your challengers and your comets
and your archers
and your archers. How much high-end AT or the German box where it's like, oh yeah, here's your Hornices, here are your Hummels, here are your King Tigers. Like, what are you doing, Battlefront?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I was just putting this stuff in, I was shoving it in to see what. Throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
It's just like Phil Yates and Peter just sitting there drinking heavily, deciding what goes in some of these boxes. We just got to put the new kits in. The hell if they make sense.
Oh dear. But yeah, there you go. So mid-war. So Mike, round us up. Give us a mid-war roundup.
Right. So in our buy two section, we have the Enemy at the Gates Soviet infantry box. Mm-hmm. We have Tobruk. And honestly, I think like Tobruk is the real winner of this list.
We got British content in the buy two selection. That's like unheard of.
It's astonishing. It's good British content in the buy two. If the British side didn't hold up to the Italian side, it'd be in solid starter with Kasserine and Stalingrad. Mm-hmm. But it's actually good. Going back to solid starter, we have the Semivente box, the Death or Glory box, the Iron Cross German box. I'm rebranding this. I'm doing Battlefront a favor. I'm rebranding the Armored Fist box to a Death or Glory box. It will sell better. We have the Kasserine and Stalingrad 2-player starters, the good Stalingrad for the record. Under flawed choice, we have the DAC box, the American Fighting First, the Soviet Red Banner tanks, and the Kursk 2-player starter box. Mm-hmm. Under existing collection boosters, you were so close to making this box good, Battlefront. We have the mixed Panzer company out of Ghost Panzers, and down
Best
in British starter box
ever.
An excellent late war box. Lee tried so hard to get this in there, and I'm like, no, Lee, please, we're going to confuse people because it doesn't show up in the late war part of the website. And then down in British starter boxes, we have Stalingrad and El Alamein being the namesake.
Mm-hmm. The worst thing about El Alamein is it stops Tobruk having the proper name. But then it annoyed me when you then pointed out Stalingrad has it's called Stalingrad. So there's no reason Tobruk should be called Tobruk, but it should be called El Alamein. It's like, why is it Tobruk? Well, it's just, at what point were Shermans and Grants ever at Tobruk, apart from when they passed through following the retreating German army in 1943? late 42. And then it's like, I mean, you have like El Alamein right there, where you could call it the proper name. You know, El Alamein, where the British Shermans and Grants did clash with Italians. Anyway, rant over. Liz gonna get rationally angry about silly naming conventions. Here you are.
I mean, it's just, we just need to figure out what sets Fez off now, and then we'll have a special episode of the podcast where Duncan rants on Schwimmwagons, you rant at El Alamein, and then Fez rants at well, he just rants about how he went to the ETC.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Eddie is obviously the font of optimism that keeps the podcast going, because obviously he doesn't really rant about anything. He hasn't got his one little thing that gnaws at him.
He gloats about how he's on Team England for ETC. Let me correct that.
Yes. And something about ETC, it happens to everyone who goes ETC. Goes, you know, I went to ETC. But and be fair, Eddie's by far the best, best person I know for that. You know, he's actually remarkably reserved about it. But
right. So if you have complaints, as always, please email Eddie at breakthroughassault.co.uk. I think sorry, it's Fez at breakthroughassault.co.uk. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Fez at breakthroughassault.co.uk.
Yeah. And as always, listen to the podcast Shoot and Scoot, which also has a YouTube version. You probably see not too far away from this. And yeah, so thanks again, Mike, for coming on the show. And
remember to hit like and subscribe, leave a comment below, because those are the YouTube things. The algorithm has my family hostage. Please like and subscribe, leave comments.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're way too niche with monetize. YouTube gets all the money. We don't get even a fraction of it. Yeah, so our next one we'll be looking at will be Team Yankee boxes, won't it be?
Yes.
So I'm
the tier lists are not changing names for Team Yankee. I'm sorry in advance.
To be fair, British Starter Box is actually going to be, I think, in the right place in that one. But yeah, we'll leave it a few weeks. Hopefully, by then, a new book might appear. We might have another extra army box to shove into it. But
ooh.
We'll see how it goes.
Smell the article now. Will we finally get like a good way to start NATO forces? Ooh, who knows? I'll never tell.
We'll find out. Yes, and yeah, will there be an IKEA? Will be an IKEA tier?
Buy 2 IKEA, only for the meatballs.
Dear. Anyway, so thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.
I have this mental image of Eddie where he just drinks 3 Red Bulls all duct taped together really fast. And he goes, all right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, welcome to Shoot and Scoot.
And there's the outtake.
Oh no, that's going to go in the outtakes.